if we are engaged in a competition for some scholarship, post, whatever, and let's say he wins, it's a ritual for him to tell me, you know, I know that you really deserve this. So I will step down. But I'm expected to say, no, thanks. No, you can have it. Now, you will say it's an empty exchange. What's the result of it? It is the social link, friendship, or whatever. Or even a more vulgar example. When you, if you are a poor and a rich friend, whatever, person older, invites you to a restaurant, it's absolutely clear to both of you that he will pay. But isn't it there a structural necessity of this short ritual where you insist a little bit that you will pay, but then I hope you don't make the mistake I made years ago. I insisted a little bit too long, and then the friend said, okay, pay if you want. Okay. But let me give you a much more refined example, which happened to me. It's very traumatic for me. This summer, in a Swiss resort, some kind of stupid summer school to corrupt intellectuals, where I was there with, among others, my good friend, or even we theoretically hate each other, send each other to Gulag and so on, but personally we are friends, Judith Butler. We were once in a normal conversation, and then I did something, I must admit it. Don't be afraid, nothing against her. I am the bad guy here, absolutely. I used some very vulgar words. You know, I called her a degenerate freak and so on. I thought this is humor. Okay, it's a very weird humor, but I don't know why I did it. Maybe my defense should have been, you know, that creepy evangelical guy, Haggard or what. No, this kind of, there is a dark side of myself. I'm fighting it, but cannot dominate it. Okay, so I saw that I did something terribly wrong. So I called her later and sincerely apologized, absolutely, unconditionally, with none of this John Kerry or whoever tricks. No, if somebody felt offended, then, you know. Then she did something very nice. She told me something like, thanks, I appreciate it, but I wasn't offended. I knew you didn't mean it. So really, you owe me no apology. She was very sincere in this. But you got my point. My point is that she was able to say, you owe me no apology, only after I gave her the apology. If I were not to give her apology, it wouldn't fun. This excess is the excess of these implicit rules. And I claim everything hangs on these implicit rules. Our entire, how should I call it, ethical substance hangs on these implicit rules, which are crucial but cannot be directly normativized or even worse, penalized. This, I think, is, for me at least, one of the problems of political correctness. That, the way I see it, it tends to legalize what precisely should function as this kind of a spontaneous set of rules. And that's, I think, an ethical catastrophe. Because the moment you have to do it, the battle is already lost. You know what I mean? For example, it's obscene to say, I oppose rape in our societies, hopefully I'm glad that it is, and then to give arguments. I want to live in a society where you don't have to argue about this, where simply if somebody claims we men should be allowed to rape, I don't know, he appears a jerk, an idiot, or you know what I mean? The moment you have to argue explicitly, the battle is lost, which is why this accounts, I think, for one of the ethical tragedies today for me. That what I found so horrible, many people misunderstood me here about the debates on torture now, should be torture terrorists and so on. It's not so much torture as such. No, I'm opposed to it, don't misunderstand me. But to be very frank, the field is open in the sense of, in some crazy situation, let's be melodramatic in this cheap sense, you know. Some evil guys have my small daughter, they're beating her, and I catch one of these guys. In despair, I cannot look you into the eye and guarantee that I wouldn't torture the guy. But I think the true catastrophe of the debate on torture is not in torture, but in debate. Even if you are opposed to it, it's that we accepted it as a topic of debate. So, what goes wrong here in the debate on torture? There is a book, Sam Harris, The End of Belief. published, I think, about a year ago, and which was a New York Times bestseller, which advocates torture. And now a little bit of this. What is wrong in the book? Many things. It's based on, among other things, it advocates torture. It's based on a very crude analogy with evolutionary logic. It claims that what prevents us from torturing people, it's a kind of a ethical illusion, which is similar to the moon illusion. In the sense of, we know now that moon is not a small object that we see, but a much larger object. In the same way, in ethics, we do not yet know that we are not yet able, at the level of our ethical gut feeling, to take into account the fact that suffering of those we don't see, who are far away, matters much more than the suffering of somebody here. If we were to set our rules properly, then we should be not only able, but even it would have been our duty, if you can prevent much greater suffering of others, to torture somebody who is here. Then Sam Harris allows for the point that we cannot get out of this illusion, which is for him, as he puts it in slightly cynical term, a neurological evolutionary illusion. He imagines a truth pill, a drug. That was his solution for our sensitivities. To develop a drug which you give it to the terrorist, injection pill, and then the terrorists, for the external view, seems just to fall asleep. But internally, it's a total nightmare, but you cannot detect it outside, no? And then he awakens after half an hour and, my God, confesses that he kills his mother, whatever, everything. And he thinks that would have been the solution. I have problems here. The first problem is that what he proposes is basically decaffeinated torture, no? Like in the same way, and that's our, let's call it postmodern ideological condition. In the same way that we want coffee without caffeine, we want, I don't know, beer without alcohol, muffins without fat, and so on. Here you get even torture without the bad effect, like decaffeinated torture. And we get everything here. This is expanded on all domains. Like I claim that one of the weak points, failures of the usual liberal multiculturalism is that it's, again, a decaffeinated multiculturalism. The other, yes, but a decaffeinated other. Like the most racist thing for me, I prefer a brutal John Wayne claiming Indians, Native Americans were barbarians to this, if you listen to some politically correct freaks, Native Americans are kind of, people dancing their ecological dances, obsessed with harmony and balance and so on. That's racism at its worst. So that's my first problem. My second problem is a very cynical one. KGB already did it. I read in the history of KGB that Serbsky Institute, which was the psychiatric wing of KGB, in the 60s and 70s, developed some strange, medicine, not medicine. They injected to arrested dissidents near heart, in the heart region, some liquid, which, again, from the outside, you just appear to doze off a little bit. From the inside, it was nightmare, as if you are prevented breathing and so on. It was the thing. But something more radical is at work here. Which dimension is lost when you treat the other people the way Sam Harris proposes? I claim that the dimension of what in Judeo-Christian tradition is called neighbor, and I'm an atheist. I'm not now using it in any mystical term or religious even, but simply in the term of the abyss of the other's personality, of this intensity of being too close to the other, in this his-her abyss of the other's desire and so on. There is something nightmarish in being confronted by this abyss of the other, which is why the neighbor is always too close, if you want. No, the neighbor is, it's not physical proximity, as Sam Harris thinks. The neighbor is always too close. It always has to be moved a little bit further away. So this neighbor is properly monstrous. This neighbor is not the nice guy. This is the decaffeinated neighbor, the nice guy with whom you share your experiences and so on, which is why my first my further crazy conclusion, which is why I radically oppose this standard notion of